Most of you are about to do this eclipse wrong. Some of you will sit down on August 12th and manifest everything you've ever wanted, full force. Others will avoid anything spiritual that day entirely, convinced it's too risky to touch. I'm going to show you why both instincts are only half right and exactly what actually works by the time this video ends. Here's the event underneath all of it. On August 12th at 20 degrees Leo, the moon slides directly between the Earth and the Sun, and for a few minutes, the thing your entire day organizes itself around simply stops being there. Call this a new moon with the volume turned all the way up, happening in the one sign built entirely around being seen. Leo governs identity, self-expression, and the willingness to lead with your heart in full view. And this eclipse falls exactly in that sign's degree of confidence and creative fire. When the sun goes dark in the sign, it rules. The message underneath the silence carries real weight. Something about how you show up is about to be tested and then quietly rewritten. This particular eclipse also carries a south node placement in Leo, and I read that as pressure toward exhaustion in old, familiar patterns, a slower unwinding over a straightforward acceleration toward something new, adding one more layer to a day already carrying plenty. Most people ask this question, expecting a simple answer, and here's the real one. It depends entirely on what's already moving in your life right now. An eclipse rarely creates change out of nothing. It accelerates change that was already underway, pulling it into the light faster than it would have arrived on its own. Eclipses operate in the most absolute register there is. They interrupt. They don't soften anything, and they don't dilute anything. For a brief stretch, the sun disappears entirely, taking your usual sense of orientation and certainty along with it. In Leo specifically, that darkness falls directly on leadership, authority, and recognition, the very things you'd normally expect to sit at the center of your life. Underneath the obvious drama sits a quieter question I want you sitting with. What happens when the spotlight actually goes out for a moment and you're left with only what remains once the performance stops? Physically and emotionally, here's the range I want you watching for in yourself, because every account tends to be deeply personal. Some feel a tiredness that sleep alone can't quite touch, the kind that sits in the body regardless of how many hours were logged the night before. Some feel unusually emotional, moved by small things that wouldn't normally reach them, a song or a stranger's kindness landing harder than expected. Others feel restless or unexpectedly creative, pulled toward a project they'd abandoned months earlier, or strangely quiet, as though something inside them is waiting before it acts. None of these responses is wrong, because the experience genuinely differs from person to person, shaped by whatever sits close to this exact degree in your own chart. If your sun, moon, or rising sign falls near 20 degrees of Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, or Scorpio, expect the effect to land with unusual precision and to keep unfolding gradually over the roughly 6 months I'd give a total solar eclipse's full arc, well beyond the single day itself. Here's the part of the folklore that's actually worth knowing before you decide what to believe. Cultures across history have treated a vanishing sun as something closer to a warning than a gift. In Transylvanian folklore, an eclipse was explained as the sun turning away in anger at human behavior. In other traditions, pregnant women and children were kept indoors. Cooking paused because the food itself was thought to spoil under the darkened light, and entire communities braced quietly for whatever the disappearance of daylight might bring. I don't treat this like luck in either direction. I treat it like a threshold, neither a blessing nor a curse on its own. It's a door that opens whether you walk through it consciously or not, and what waits on the other side depends far more on what you've already been building than on the eclipse itself. If anything is being handed to you here, it's momentum, and momentum only helps you when you already know which direction you're moving in. Here's why this particular eclipse carries extra weight beyond the usual folklore. This is the first total solar eclipse to reach mainland Europe in over a century, with totality crossing Greenland, Iceland, and northern Spain, arriving in Spain late in the evening, with the sun already low on the horizon. Totality itself lasts barely over 2 minutes, a small window for something with this much symbolic gravity attached to it. A total eclipse that ends in something close to a sunset is rare enough on its own. Landing in Leo, the sign of being fully seen, in a place that has spent the past decade quietly reconsidering what it wants to be known for, gives this eclipse an almost theatrical sense of timing. The physical path of an eclipse has always mattered too. The places the shadow actually touches carry significance for years afterward, far more than decoration on a map. Here's exactly what I want you doing, and it has little to do with grand gesture. Stillness does most of the work here, plain and unhurried. Sit alone with a journal. Recite something meaningful, whether that's a prayer, a mantra, or a single sentence you keep returning to. Meditate, even briefly. Let your breath slow down on purpose, on your own timing, without waiting for calm to arrive by itself. There's a specific reason quiet work fits an eclipse better than louder ritual does. When the sun's light is blocked, the noise of the ego quiets down along with it, and in that gap, something usually drowned out finally gets a chance to be heard, whether you'd call that your intuition, your shadow self, or simply the part of you that never gets airtime during an ordinary day. Grounding practices matter just as much here. Rest, hydration, and slower breathing genuinely support your nervous system through a shift this significant. And that kind of support is often the entire point of the day, not a smaller substitute for something more dramatic. If you want a more structured practice, try a simple candle ritual combining sun and moon symbolism, focused on the decisions and patterns you're ready to change. It gives the day a container without forcing anything into it. Water left out during the eclipse, sometimes called eclipse moon water, is another practice worth knowing about, used symbolically to preserve the energy of the day for later use, sometimes saved for months and brought back out when a similar theme resurfaces. None of this requires elaborate setup, and none of it asks you to buy anything special or perform for an audience. What I want from you is intention held loosely, open palms, not a clenched fist, trusting that the day is doing real work whether or not you dress it up with ceremony. This is the question people ask me most anxiously, and one answer here could genuinely protect your eyesight. Looking directly at the sun during an eclipse causes real, permanent damage to your eyes, and that danger stays exactly the same regardless of how spiritually significant the moment feels. Proper eye protection is required for the entire event, with the single exception of the brief seconds of full totality if you happen to be standing inside its exact path. Spiritually, here's the one caution I give you every single time. Be careful forcing brand new intentions into existence during the eclipse itself, especially ones that depend on long-term stability to hold together. Eclipses reveal and rearrange far more naturally than they build from scratch, and something you're trying to plant fresh in this exact window can end up feeling volatile simply because the ground underneath it hasn't settled yet. This still leaves plenty of room for action on the day itself. Work with what's already in motion in your life and give that momentum room to move over launching something entirely untested and asking it to hold steady in ground this unsettled. I'd treat signing a major contract, starting a new relationship, or committing to a long-term plan for the first time on this specific day with more caution than doing the same thing a week later, once the immediate charge of the eclipse has had a little time to settle. This is the question I get asked more than any other about eclipses. And I'm going to give you the honest answer, the real one, because this question deserves better than a simple yes or no. Here's the caution I take seriously. Under ordinary circumstances, a new moon is an ideal window for manifestation, but an eclipse carries far more weight than an ordinary new moon. The sun and moon overshadowing each other creates a real clash inside your own inner world, and that makes this a poor moment to ask the universe for anything specific. My advice here leans toward surrender. Let the changes already unfolding arrive on their own terms, without stacking a manifestation ritual on top of an already heavy day. Here's the other side of it, and it deserves a fair hearing too. Much of the don't manifest warning circulating online traces back to social media momentum more than to any deep historical record, and evidence that simply setting an intention during an eclipse causes harm stays thin at best. I'm not telling you to avoid manifesting outright. I'm telling you to reshape how you build it. Over demanding something exact and rigid, ask for a feeling you want to carry instead, focused on your own readiness to receive over the precise shape of what eventually arrives. Go further if you want to. Treat the eclipse as a moment to clear static first, a bath, a walk, unhurried time alone, done specifically so that whatever gets set as an intention lands in a clearer field, not a crowded one. When your intention already aligns with the direction your life is already moving in, this kind of work tends to flow easily. When you're trying to force something entirely new into being, especially something requiring long-term stability, it tends to feel unstable instead. Here's where I actually land on it. I'm not telling you an eclipse guarantees disaster over something as small as writing down a hope during it. I am telling you, this is a day built for releasing more than demanding, for feeling into a direction over gripping a specific outcome, and for trusting that an eclipse this significant is already doing enough work on its own without needing anything forced on top of it. The sun disappears for a few minutes on August 12th, and then it returns exactly where it always was. What actually changes has little to do with the sun itself. It's what you finally notice once the light comes back, the part of you that was there all along, quietly waiting for the noise to clear. Leo asks to be seen, and for one afternoon this August, the heavens give you the exact opposite. A few minutes of darkness in the one sign built for shining, so that whatever you find in that brief dark has a real chance of being true.